You are listening to the Aging Starts Now podcast, where it's all about responding with confidence to the legal, financial, and personal challenges created by a disability, unexpected illness, or aging in general. Join us weekly as elder law attorneys Barbara McGinnis and Chris Johnson, along with other members of the Johnson-McGinnis Elder Care Law and Estate Planning team, talk about the tools, techniques, strategies, and services that will make the elder care journey easier for everyone involved. Get ready, because aging starts now.
If you've just returned from visiting your parents for the holidays, maybe you've noticed stacks of unopened mail, expired food in the fridge, or changes in hygiene or mood. These little moments can feel unsettling, and they often raise a big question: is it time for more help at home? I'm Outreach Coordinator Dana Hentschel, and in today's episode of Aging Starts Now, we'll walk through the subtle and not so subtle signs that an aging parent may be struggling more than they let on. We'll talk about what to look for, what those red flags mean, and how to approach the next steps with compassion and clarity. Joining me for today's conversation is Erin, Keogh-Rankin. And Erin, did I say that right?
You did, Dana.
Thank you so much. She is one of our elder care coordinators here at Johnson-McGinnis Elder Care Law and Estate Planning. Welcome, Erin.
Thank you, Dana. I'm so happy to be here.
Great. Well, tell me, many adult children only see their parents, a few times a year. So why are holiday visits so important, and why are they an important reality check for noticing changes?
Well, exactly that, Dana, is because with the holidays, oftentimes that's the only time when families are afforded the luxury of getting together. And what is otherwise a hectic world of work responsibilities and, other family responsibilities with children, young ones, what have you. So holidays are a time for, oftentimes families are a little bit more relaxed once they reach their destination. They gather around, they play catch up on what's going on with their lives and all. So we take advantage of those holidays for sure.
Right. So what are some of the common red flags you encourage families to look for when they're home for the holidays?
Dana, oftentimes it's, you can notice those little things as soon as you drive in mom and dad's driveway. As far as, is there anything out of the ordinary? Is the yard work properly tended to? If you are fortunate enough to stop and check their mail before you get to the end of the driveway, is there mail that's been in the mailbox that's a few days old? And then as you're, walking past the vehicle, are you noticing any dents or dings or scratches on the vehicle in the driveway? So oftentimes, there are a lot of things that we can notice and take advantage of before we even ring the doorbell.
That's true. And I know that sometimes hygiene may be a sensitive subject sometimes, but what changes in personal care or appearance might suggest that a parent may need more support?
Yeah, absolutely. Oftentimes, yes, you're right. As far as hygiene, that's a very sensitive topic for a lot of people, understandably so, and especially with our parents as they're aging. But, something that's really obvious is just the body odor, or if you're noticing there are piles of dirty clothes on the floor, or even just their grooming and all. If mom had always historically been very well groomed and coiffed, so to speak, are there untrimmed fingernails or anything of that nature? Things like that, pretty obvious, but yet subtle for a lot of people. So we want to keep that in mind as well.
Right. I mean, that was one of the first things that we noticed with my in-laws.
Oh, really?
My mother-in-law, because we only saw them twice a year, and mainly at Christmas.
Right.
And she was always very put together, but she met us at the door. There were some stains on the shirt. The hair wasn't completely brushed. And so, sometimes you want to kind of just brush that off. And then there was some expired food in the refrigerator. And so, but who doesn't sometimes have expired food in the refrigerator?
That's exactly right. Yeah. Yeah. And that's easy, to do and all, as far as having some of those expired dates and all. But when it's pretty significant, you see the mold or the refrigerator is not clean, things that are just historically out of the ordinary, you need to acknowledge that, right? That's a big red flag for sure.
That's right. And we had some dents in the car too. What happened here? Oh, I don't know.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I'm glad that you brought it up though. That is something that we need to be aware of and look for.
So cognitive changes sometimes can be kind of subtle. What should families be paying attention to when it comes to memory, confusion, or difficulty completing some tasks?
Yeah, I would say, obviously, if there's a significant weight loss since the last time you saw them, or even with a family, you're together and mom or dad, they're sitting there and yet they're picking at their food, or, they're forgetting to eat, or not wanting to eat with the family, or, they're expressing a loss in interest in cooking, especially for those widows or widowers, people that live alone. It's really hard to prepare a meal for one, and I get that, but I think it's important, as you had said earlier, as far as checking out the expired date of the food in the refrigerator. Is there any spoiled food in the refrigerator? And as far as from a cognitive standpoint, if your loved one continues to repeat the same stories, now, granted, it's not uncommon. We like to reminisce about days gone by, especially with holidays. But during this visit, if the story continues to be the same story and repetitive, you may want to, that's piquing your interest, and that's a red flag. Or, if you're going to go to the grocery with mom to pick up the last minute things, and what historically she's never had any challenges, or dad driving to the grocery store. And if they somehow just take a little longer, or they pause and they, might mention, oh gosh, I thought so-and-so street was here. And just those subtle things, going to what historically is, going to church, or going to a friend's house, and now they're having difficulty navigating that. That's something that you want to look for. Any place that historically would otherwise, be commonplace for them and they're having challenges, definitely make note of that.
What about behavioral or emotional shifts like irritability or anxiety? I mean, we can all have some of that during the holidays,
Yes.
But how would that be an indicator of anything?
Well, I do think that it's wise to, yes, keep in mind holidays are stressful, even in the best of circumstances. But when our parents know that we are coming to, celebrate with them, they also know that they've raised some intelligent children and well-meaning loved ones, and they may, want to kind of keep it close to the vest, so to speak, and not let you in on what's going on with them. But subtly, if you're, noticing there's an inability or a refusal to engage in, let's say, open-ended questions, it's just like, hey, how is your driving coming along? Or tell me more about your friend Lois down the road. The last time we chatted, Mom, you were saying she was in the hospital. Can you tell me more about that? So, and Mom might become defensive, or she might just withdraw and choose not to share what's going on. And sometimes, Dana, that's an indication about perhaps missed medication. Mom's not managing her meds properly, or, taking meds incorrectly. For what I do is I always, when I'm in the restroom, in the bathroom, I'll go and check the medicine cabinet, out of all due respect, for sure. But, if the med planner, if today, let's say today is Monday, and mom hasn't taken her meds for the past 3 nights, then there's a problem there.
Right. And then I'm sure, what about mobility?
Mm-hmm. Yep,
Should that be a concern? I mean, I think as we age, we all move a little slower, but what is kind of like, oh, that's just normal aging,
yeah.
or oh, this could be a problem?
Yeah, I would say true as far as always acknowledge, yes, we're all slowing down as we age. Our bodies have a wonderful way of talking to us. But if mom or dad, are they shuffling, is what otherwise would be what we consider a normal gait. Is there a shuffling gait taking place? Are they experiencing the posture as far as a stooped posture? Or are they relying on the assistance of furniture to help, gain some balance there, or relying on a loved one's arm? Honey, take my arm, or let me take your arm. I'm a little unsteady on my feet. Those are things that you need to be on the lookout for. Those are subtle, but it definitely is impacting mobility.
Right. And of course, if someone is hesitant to drive or drive at night, or, is having some trouble getting around, they might stop doing some activities that they normally did.
That is true.
And so what kind of clues would you look for during your visit? I mean, to see whether they're still engaging in that bridge club or going to the senior center.
Yeah, that's a great question. I would say, honestly, when they no longer discuss that, or engage in those conversations, something that used to be an activity that was dad enjoyed, he's no longer discussing it. And when you bring it up, hey, when was the last time you went down to McDonald's and had coffee with the guys, right? It's like, oh, I haven't talked to them in a few months because Harry was in, hospital, or John passed away. And so those are just things that are slowly but surely starting to disconnect and starting to isolate. So those frequent visits are becoming more infrequent.
So let's say that you might have noticed a few of these red flags when you visited your family.
Yep.
But mom hasn't had a fall that you know of. I mean, she's lost a little weight, but, nothing huge. How do you know when is the time to intervene?
I always say that open the line of communication. Dana, I'm a firm believer, when in doubt, check it out. Because if you're concerned, it's worth discussing and pursuing, assistance. Be honest, express your fears or your concerns. Mom's, you've lost some weight. She seems to be doing okay, but something else might be going on, right? So you just respect her privacy, but yet you open that line of communication and put it on you. Express your concern and how that's impacting you. That's really important.
Right. So I guess just kind of keep trying, because sometimes they may be open to discussing this, and maybe sometimes not.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, so you kind of test the waters, right? I mean, if you're staying there for a whole week and you kind of start broaching this subject day 2 and she's still resistant, then approach it differently before you head out. And then always follow up after the visit, with your thank you note or what have you. And it was great spending time with you, but I do want you to know I'm still concerned about, when I was there, you were expressing pain in, your right knee. Have you followed up with your doctor? Because that way she knows that you are connected. When in doubt, check it out.
Right. So what are the first steps that someone should take if their parent is kind of open to having these discussions and they're like, I just don't cook as much as I used to, or I'm having more difficulties with this or that. What's the next step? Where do you go from there?
Yeah, again, always start early and often. And you want to involve your parents and ensure that they're active participants in the decisions about their care and the current living situation. Reach out to the local resources, check the support group organizations. Let's say if there is a shuffling gait and it's been determined during this holiday visit that dad is having some challenges, met with the neurologist, and let's say there's Parkinson's, a diagnosis. Well, you definitely want to partner, look up the Parkinson's Association, contact your local area agency on aging, and get them connected, not only your parents, but also you as a loved one, as a family member, especially once you return home. It's important that you become knowledgeable as well.
Right. About different types of care.
Yes.
Being in the home and the cost of that.
Oh my gosh. Yes. Especially the cost, because it is not a one size fits all. I have relatives that are in Punxsutawney, Pennsylvania. So those resources are a little more limited versus being in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. And the cost of care is different in each state. So it's, again, there are resources out there. Google is great. But again, I always say contact your local area agency on aging. Get the best information. And of course, your local elder law firm.
Of course. And what advice would you give, Erin, to adult children who may feel guilty or a little bit even overwhelmed after noticing these changes? I know that when my in-laws were in St. Louis and my husband and I would leave, we would discuss this and we would discuss this with them, and they were completely resistant at first. Mm-hmm. And then you just kind of leave and you're like, I hope a crisis doesn't happen.
Exactly. But, Dana, I'd say, understandably express your concerns prior to you and your loved one getting back in the car and heading back to Nashville. Say, had a great time, but yet also it's one that has concerned me. And these are my concerns because I love you, right? So it's just important that, we take all that into consideration.
And then finally, what are some positive, maybe proactive ways family can support an aging parent while still respecting their independence and dignity? Because I know kind of at the end of the day, they are still your parents and they are still adults. And if there aren't any great cognitive challenges, they still have a say in what happens to them.
Yes, they absolutely do. They're still in the driver's seat. Well, for some people, we hope they're no longer driving. But I would say definitely get your affairs in order and have that discussion about things such as advanced directives, the wills and the trusts and all. I mean, you have to discuss those future plans before a crisis hits, because this makes it a normal part of life and not a reaction to emergencies, which is what you were alluding to earlier.
Right. And I know what worked with my family was, if you want control, this is a great way to get control, is by discussing it and planning ahead of time.
That's exactly right. And it's all based on love, right? The whole relationship is based on, the foundation is love for your parent, love for your in-laws, love for just your fellow human being, but also human man. But also, it's just out of that, it's just a mutual respect that you have for the loved ones, for the aging parent. And let's plan for this. Better to have a plan in place and not need it versus need it and not have a plan in place. So, I can't stress enough the importance of communication, but also just meeting them where they are, Dana. Your parents at that time or your in-laws, they perhaps weren't ready during that particular visit. My hope for you and for anyone else in a similar situation is that with every conversation you have thereafter, you're still instilling that trust and that love for your in-laws. And my hope is that, they will eventually be open and receptive and recognize your intentions are good, not to harm, but to help.
That's right. Well, that is all the time that we have for today's episode. Thank you for joining us for this really important conversation. And if you saw any red flags during your holiday visit, you're not alone, and you don't have to navigate this alone. And reaching out early, whether to a care professional, a doctor, a trusted family member, or an elder law firm, like Erin said, like Johnson McGinnis Elder Care Law and Estate Planning, that can make all the difference in the world, getting the support that you need. Johnson McGinnis Elder Care Law and Estate Planning is a life care planning law firm, helping families navigate the financial complexities and care questions that can come with aging or disability. Join us next week for another episode of Aging Starts Now.
Thank you for listening to the Aging Starts Now podcast. For more information about today's show, visit tn-elderlaw.com, click on the Free Resources tab, and then click on Aging Starts Now. You'll find the show notes there. And while you're at it, why not check out all the free resources available at tn-elderlaw.com. Document downloads, the Johnson McGinnis blog, educational videos, informative articles, helpful links, a TV show, and more. It's all there, free for the taking. If you enjoy listening to the Aging Starts Now podcast, please subscribe, rate the show, or leave us a review. It's easy to do on whatever app you use to listen. We would love your feedback on the show. Aging Starts Now. We'll be back next week with more candid discussions about the challenges created by aging, disability, and unexpected illness.